The phone rang just as I settled into my favorite chair by the window. I had been sipping tea, letting the warm sunlight brush my hands, when the voice on the line broke everything. Calm, almost too calm, it said. Your daughter's plane crashed. She didn't make it. My chest froze. My hands trembled. The world felt hollow, as if someone had pulled all the air out of the room. I blinked, hoping the words were wrong, that the voice had mispronounced something, that this was a mistake. But it wasn't. The line stayed steady, unyielding. I gripped the phone tighter, knuckles white, my mind racing. Just yesterday we had talked, laughed over tea, and shared stories about her plans. She had promised to call next month to visit me. How could she be gone now? My heart refused to accept it. The ticking clock felt impossibly loud. Each tick echoed like a drum counting down a life I thought was safe. Then I noticed it. A small hesitation in the operator's voice. Just a fraction of a second, but long enough to feel deliberate. My stomach twisted. Why would she pause like that? Something wasn't right. I dropped the phone, hands shaking, and sank back into the chair. Memories of my daughter flooded me. The way she used to hold my hand, her laughter, the sparkle in her eyes. And now I was told it was all gone. Yet a tiny voice whispered inside me. Wait, something is wrong. I tried to focus on the room around me. The teacup on the table, the old photos on the wall, the sunlight spilling across the floor. They all seemed normal. Too normal. As if life itself was pretending nothing had happened. My mind jumped to the flight details, the news reports I hadn't seen yet. But nothing explained the hesitation in the voice, the faint, almost imperceptible pause. My pulse quickened. Fear was there, but curiosity began to stir. I wanted to know the truth, even if it meant stepping into something I couldn't yet imagine. A small thought crept in, almost like a whisper. What if this isn't what it seems? My daughter had always been careful, cautious. Would she just disappear like that? My eyes fell on the papers the airline had sent. I had glanced at them in a daze, but now I noticed small inconsistencies. The flight number, the departure time. Tiny details that didn't match what I remembered. My breath caught. My fear was shifting. Confusion and disbelief were giving way to suspicion. I stood, holding the papers, trying to steady my shaking hands. I pressed my fingers to my temples, breathing shallowly, listening to the silence of my home. The ticking clock was no longer just a sound. It was a warning. A challenge. A dare. Find out the truth, it seemed to say. And in that moment I made a vow to myself, quiet but firm. I would discover what really happened. No one could tell me my daughter was gone without answers. The room seemed to hold its breath with me. Shadows stretched across the floor, sunlight weakened at the edges, and the familiar space felt strange, heavy, as if it too was waiting. Waiting for me to take the first step into the mystery that had just appeared in my life. A storm I could not yet see but would face anyway. My fingers tightened on the papers. My heart, though still pounding, held a new determination. I would not let fear paralyze me. I would find the truth. The letter lay on the table, edges curled. I hesitated. My mother's handwriting stared back. Familiar but slightly wrong. One word smudged, as if someone had rewritten it. My pulse tightened, not from grief but from suspicion. Something was off. I unfolded the letter fully, reading slowly. A date didn't match the flight papers I had checked earlier. I traced the ink with my finger, remembering the last time I sat here with her, her hand brushing mine as we laughed over tea. That memory grounded me. My grief was real, but now it mingled with doubt. I stood and moved toward the window. The cracked pane rattled in the evening breeze, carrying the faint scent of rain. Across the street, children played, their laughter distant but jarring. I clutched a folded photo of my mother from her last birthday. A small number scribbled on the back caught my eye. Someone had left it deliberately. My stomach knotted. Hours passed. I pulled out the boarding passes and flight manifests from the small drawer. One ticket had the wrong date. Another stamp didn't match the airline's records. I stacked them neatly, letting each inconsistency sink in. The room felt heavier, as though the walls themselves were holding secrets. I felt her presence in the quiet tick of the clock, and grief gave way to determination. Shadows stretched across the living room as evening fell. I paused, listening, neighbors' footsteps faint on the pavement, ordinary but charged now with tension. Back at the table, I laid out the letter, photo, and tickets in a line. Slowly a pattern emerged. Someone had meticulously constructed a lie. I picked up the photo again, tracing the edges, feeling the texture of the paper. Her smile stared at me, oblivious to the deception. My heart ached, but determination overpowered fear. I had to follow the clues, to uncover what really happened to her. Sitting back, I let the items rest in front of me. Each detail, the smudged ink, Altered photo, mismatched numbers was a breadcrumb. I didn't know the full story yet, but I couldn't ignore it. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a sliver of light across the room. I gripped the letter again, heart steady, eyes sharp. This wasn't just grief anymore. It was a pursuit of truth. The night pressed against the windows, and I sat on the edge of the armchair, the envelope from earlier lying on my lap. I opened it slowly, letting the edges brush my fingers. One smudge of ink caught my attention. Not random. Someone had altered this deliberately. My chest tightened, but I forced myself to focus on the paper, separating emotion from observation. Next, I picked up the photograph I had found that morning. Her smile was familiar, warm, yet the handwriting on the back raised a small alarm. A single letter, the M, curved differently than I remembered. Not a dramatic shift, just enough to notice. I held it closer, letting the realization sink in. Someone had tampered with evidence to make me grieve. My mind raced, but I stayed grounded, noting each detail without letting fear dominate. I rose and walked toward the window, letting my hand brush the curtain. The rain had started, soft and intermittent. The distant sound of tires on wet pavement reached me. The world outside moved on, oblivious, while my life had been quietly rewritten. I felt no one behind me, but instinct sharpened my senses. Each small sound, floorboards creaking, the whisper of wind, served as a reminder. I was alone yet alert. Returning to the table, I laid out the envelope, the boarding pass, and the flight manifest. I studied them carefully, noticing small inconsistencies. Flight times that didn't match, minor misspellings of destinations, and a number misaligned in the manifest. Each anomaly pulled me closer to a disturbing pattern. The clues were deliberate, calculated, and designed to mislead me. A folded slip of paper fell out of the drawer as I searched for other documents. I unfolded it and froze at a single detail. A note referencing my mother's favorite poem, the one she recited every Sunday morning. The handwriting wasn't hers, yet the knowledge it contained was intimate. My breath hitched, not from fear but from understanding. Someone had been orchestrating this deception with access to her private life. Then a sharp knock echoed from the front door. My heart skipped and I froze. I didn't leap to a conclusion. Instead, I listened carefully, 1, 2, 3 slow beats. Silence. My pulse steadied, but my mind catalogued possibilities. The visitor could be anyone or nothing at all. It wasn't proof of danger, but it demanded attention. My determination solidified. I wouldn't be fooled. I returned to the table, arranging the documents neatly. Each clue now had a place, a significance I could trace. I forced myself to breathe, letting urgency and clarity replace raw panic. Tonight, I had uncovered threads of truth hidden behind lies. The puzzle was still incomplete, but I now held the first pieces, and the hunt for answers had truly begun. The envelope lay on the table, untouched at first. My hands hovered over it, reluctant, but curiosity overpowered caution. Inside was a single folded note. The ink was slightly smudged, curling at the edges in a way that felt unmistakably familiar. I held it closer, squinting, and my stomach sank. Those words weren't just random. They mirrored a letter I had written years ago. Someone had copied my handwriting, forged my emotions, and turned my grief into their manipulation. I placed the note down and picked up the airline manifest, scanning the rows again. There it was. A seat assignment that didn't match the boarding pass I remembered. A flight number altered by just a single digit. I traced it with my finger, disbelief and suspicion mixing in a sharp knot. How could such a small change go unnoticed by everyone else? I realized suddenly, nothing I had been told could be trusted. My gaze shifted to a photograph on the corner of the table. At first glance it looked normal, my daughter smiling, the sky behind her. But then I noticed a tiny mark almost invisible in the corner. A symbol I recognized from the forged note. The connection hit me like a punch. Someone was leaving a trail, teasing me, and yet trying to control the story of her death. My pulse quickened, but not from panic. This time it was from a sudden clarity. I picked up the photograph carefully, letting the weight of the paper ground me. Each small anomaly, seat numbers, letters, symbols, felt deliberate, intentional. Whoever had orchestrated this had underestimated me. For the first time I saw the scope of their plan. They weren't just hiding facts. They had tried to rewrite my memory, my morning. I gritted my teeth. That would not happen. A sudden realization struck. The note, the photograph, the manifest, they were all connected. A small detail in each, a signature mark only I could recognize. One combination of anomalies could reveal the truth. My heartbeat thrummed as I traced each anomaly, aligning them on the table. Patterns emerged that I hadn't seen before. My mind sharpened with purpose. The fear, the grief, it was still there, but now it fueled investigation, not paralysis. I leaned back and let the silence of the room wash over me. No footsteps, no shadows moving. Just the quiet hum of the evening settling in. I didn't need fake scares to feel the tension. The evidence itself was enough. I realized then that this wasn't merely a puzzle to solve. This was a revelation waiting to explode. A hidden truth that had the power to undo everything I had believed about my daughter's fate. The final piece fell into place as I noticed a tiny annotation in the margin of the manifest. A name, almost illegible, that matched a childhood nickname my daughter and I had shared. My breath caught. Whoever had planned this thought they could erase her existence from my world, but in trying to manipulate me, they had given me the single undeniable proof that she was alive. My hands trembled not with doubt, but with a surge of hope and determination. I exhaled slowly, letting the gravity of the moment settle. This was the spike I had been waiting for. The moment that changed everything. The lies, the manipulations, the forged letters, they all led to this single revelation. I would not be fooled. Not anymore. With a clear mind and steady hands, I gathered the papers, ready to follow the trail that had been laid out for me, knowing that every small detail now mattered more than ever. The letter trembled in my hands. For a heartbeat I could only stare at it, letting the silence fill the room. Then reality struck. My daughter, she was alive. The words hit hard, sharper than any grief I had known. I gripped the paper tighter, feeling the ridges of the ink under my fingertips, each line a proof that someone had hidden the truth from me. I stood quickly, chair scraping against the floor. The street outside was quiet. A single streetlight flickered, casting long thin shadows across the garden. Every shadow seemed alive, stretching toward me, warning me or calling me forward. A soft creak upstairs made me pause, heart skipping. But this time I waited, listening. The house offered no answer. Still, I forced a steadying breath and moved toward the table. The letter revealed more than words. A smudge in the corner, familiar loops of handwriting, and a tiny, almost invisible doodle she had always drawn. My pulse surged. Each detail was a signal. She had lived. My mind raced. Someone had orchestrated this deception, but I focused on what I could control. I needed action. I gathered the scattered documents. Flight manifests, boarding passes, hotel receipts. Previously meaningless scraps now aligned into a pattern. My hands moved deliberately, sifting, stacking, arranging. Candlelight caught the edges of the papers, glinting faintly on smudges, underlining clues I had overlooked. Each small discovery made the path ahead clearer. A creak echoed from above. Footsteps perhaps, or the house itself shifting. I froze, listening. The sound repeated softly. My stomach knotted with anticipation. Every possibility ran through my mind. Neighbor, intruder, or mere wind? I stepped lightly toward the staircase, hand on the banister, tension coiling through me. The sound offered no clarity, only the reminder that the world outside could be dangerous, that my next steps mattered. Then I saw it. A note tucked beneath a folder worn at the edges. Her ink. Just a few words. Trust the sunrise. I am near. A shiver ran through me. Ambiguous, yes, but alive with promise. I grabbed my coat, feeling the weight of resolve settle on my shoulders, and walked toward the door. Every step was purposeful. The fear now coiled with determination, propelling me forward. Outside, the night hit me immediately, cold, quiet, alive. Leaves rustled across the pavement, distant traffic hummed faintly, and the moonlight painted stark shapes on the street. Each sound and shadow sharpened my senses. I moved deliberately, scanning for the first hint of the trail she had left behind. Finally, I spotted it. A small mark, subtle but distinct in the silver light, something I had missed before. My breath caught. This was no longer abstract hope. This was the start of a real search. Each clue was tangible, each movement necessary. The years of grief had led to this singular moment. Action. I felt the weight of every missed call, every unanswered question, lift slightly. The path was set. I would follow it. I would reclaim her. And as I stepped further into the night, wind tugging at my coat, moonlight guiding me, I realized the journey had begun. Not in whispers, not in shadows, not in hesitation, but in motion, in determination, in the heartbeat of a mother refusing to be deceived again. The night air hit my face as I stepped onto the damp street, carrying the faint scent of jasmine mixed with wet earth. Moonlight shimmered off puddles, and a far-off train rumbled softly. I tightened my coat around me, each breath visible in the cold air. One misstep, one careless move, and the trail could vanish. At the first landmark, a lamppost half covered with ivy, I noticed a tiny sticker peeling at the corner. It was small, deliberate, and unmistakably placed. I crouched to examine it, fingers tracing the slight curl of the edge. Proof. Someone had wanted me to see it. My pulse quickened, but I didn't linger in thought. I moved on. A slip of paper caught under a drain cover, damp and fragile, pulled me forward. Her handwriting leapt out. A swirl of familiar loops, a tiny heart atop an eye. My stomach nodded. Alive. She had left this for me, and yet the silence around me made the accomplishment fragile. I held the note close as I scanned the shadows for movement. Something rustled behind a hedge, but when I turned, nothing remained. A subtle prick of doubt, a reminder I wasn't entirely alone. The street ahead was quiet, lined with houses shadowed by the moon. A lone mailbox stood by the corner, but I ignored it, eyes fixed on a small park gate ahead. Each step on the wet pavement was careful, deliberate. A gust of wind rattled a loose shutter, and my heart jumped. Nothing overt, just the hint that someone might be watching. In the park, dew soaked the grass under my shoes. A bench held the next clue. A note tucked beneath the seat, crisp despite the damp. I crouched, careful not to disturb anything else. Her handwriting again. Clear. Deliberate. A message. Near the fountain. Wait for the light. My hands trembled, but I focused on movement, not emotion. I pocketed the note and stepped closer to the fountain. The fountain shimmered as dawn's first rays struck its surface. I crouched by the stone base, fingers brushing against a small indentation holding another slip of paper. A thrill of discovery surged, but the shadows cast by nearby trees hinted at a presence, fleeting and indistinct. I froze for a heartbeat, scanning the perimeter, my breath caught in my chest. Perhaps just a bird. Perhaps someone else. The uncertainty made the moment sharper, more alive. A fallen leaf blew across the path, and I followed its motion with my eyes, grounding myself. Each step toward the fountain was deliberate. I unfolded the paper, revealing her next instruction. Clear. Direct. No ambiguity, yet the lingering shadow behind the trees reminded me. The path wasn't entirely safe. The park was waking, the first birds chirping, distant voices carried on the breeze, but I remained focused. Each clue a step forward, each movement deliberate. I straightened, tucked the paper safely, and took a deep breath. The sun painted the sky in pale gold, but the trail wasn't finished. A figure just beyond the tree line paused and vanished. My pulse spiked again. Not fear, not panic, alertness. The path ahead promised answers, but danger or misdirection could lurk anywhere. I stepped toward the fountain, boots crunching softly on the gravel, a final glance over my shoulder. The morning light offered clarity, yet the faint hint of movement reminded me. Following her trail required vigilance. The truth was close, and now every step mattered more than ever. The street lay empty under flickering streetlights, wet pavement glinting faintly in the dim glow. I pulled my coat tighter and paused at the corner where the last clue had led me. A small sticker, half hidden under a loose paving stone, caught my eye. Kneeling, I brushed away the dirt and saw it clearly. My daughter's handwriting, slightly smudged, almost hurried. My fingers tingled with anticipation. This was deliberate. Someone had left it for me to find. I moved forward slowly, boots pressing against slick asphalt, alert to every creak of the street and rustle of leaves. Shadows stretched and shifted with each step, teasing my imagination. Was someone following me? Or was it the night playing tricks? I forced the thought down. Focus. Observation. Every clue mattered, and I couldn't falter. Ahead, a bench came into view beneath a flickering lamp. On it lay a folded note. I approached cautiously, heart thudding in my chest, and unfolded it. The handwriting was unmistakable, her handwriting, but incomplete. Meet me where the... and nothing more. My stomach tightened. Someone had anticipated my arrival. Someone had been here first. I stepped onward, scanning the faint trail left behind. A bright scarf caught my eye, draped across a fence. It wasn't mine, but it felt familiar. The one she loved as a child, running through the park behind our old apartment. I reached for it, hesitated, and let it fall back. Each clue was a thread. Tugged too hard and the pattern might unravel. As I passed an alleyway, movement at its edge made me freeze. A fleeting shadow disappeared before I could be certain. Footsteps? Someone watching? The hairs on my arms prickled. I swallowed and moved on. There was no time for fear. Each moment brought me closer. A half-open gate led into a small park. Wet grass soaked my shoes as I stepped in. A slip of paper was pinned to a branch, swinging slightly in the wind. I never left. Looked beyond the swings. Hope surged, tempered by caution. Someone was guiding me, but to what? The swings loomed, their chains swaying in the damp air. My eyes darted around, scanning every dark corner. The wind whispered through the trees, carrying faint noises. Was that a footstep, a distant cough? I froze, straining to hear, but the park offered only silence. Each uncertainty tightened my focus. I moved forward, following slight disturbances in the grass, leaves pressed flat where someone had passed. Each step heightened awareness. The trail was winding, teasing, deliberately intricate. One misstep, one misread hint, and I could lose her again. A small shadow appeared at the far edge of the park, no taller than a child, swaying slightly. My breath hitched. Could it be her? Or someone else testing me? I held still, letting the figure fade slightly before advancing. My hands trembled. Not from fear but anticipation. I was close. I stepped further, careful, scanning every movement. Each clue demanded patience, observation, and precision. The streets and park held their breath with me, every sound amplified. And then a faint door creak in the distance. A figure moved, almost imperceptibly. Not yet the reunion, not yet confirmation, but enough to remind me the path was far from simple. Every nerve in my body hummed with tension. The trail continued, winding and uncertain, but it was mine to follow. I would not stop. I could not. She was out there, and the next step would bring me closer, or teach me how carefully I still needed to move. The street lay quiet, every step echoing on the slick pavement. My hand gripped the scarf under the park bench. Ahead the trail seemed to end, but I couldn't be certain. Shadows stretched across the empty swings, flickering in the faint streetlight. My pulse raced. A rustle behind a tree made me freeze. I held my breath, listening. Somewhere in the distance a faint bird called, breaking the stillness. The scent of jasmine drifted on the damp air, tugging at memories, her laugh soft and familiar. I stepped forward, heart pounding with anticipation. Beneath the bench a note caught my eye. The handwriting was unmistakable. My fingers trembled as I lifted it. A smudge marked one corner, her signature flourish. I barely dared to breathe. From the swings I saw her. She paused, scanning the street as cautiously as I had, and our eyes met. For a heartbeat, time suspended itself. Hope and disbelief collided, a strange weight pressing in my chest. My legs felt weak, but I moved forward. She hesitated, and I mirrored her pause. The cold air pressed around us, but something in the rhythm of our breathing, the shared uncertainty, tethered us. Then she stepped closer. Her hand brushed mine, and relief surged, raw and piercing. Fingers laced. Her hands shook slightly, so did mine. "Mom," she whispered, voice trembling. The single word carried years of absence, fear, and longing. After all the years, all the lies, she was finally here. I nodded, unable to speak, letting the joy and disbelief settle between us. A shadow shifted in the distance. Someone or something watched. My grip on her hand tightened. Danger wasn't gone, but for this moment it didn't matter. We held each other. Her head on my shoulder, my arms around her. Dawn broke, pale light streaking the wet pavement, illuminating the small trail she had left. Each clue, the scarf, the note, the marks only she could make, made the journey tangible, a silent testament to survival and patience. I breathed deeply, letting the tension drain, letting hope anchor in my chest. She squeezed my hand, a silent acknowledgement that the reunion was mutual. The night's fear lingered faintly in the edges, but the weight of joy and presence overwhelmed it. For the first time in years the world felt complete. Imperfect, fragile, but ours. Survival, patience, and love had brought us here. And nothing could erase this moment.